Hi, and as ever, I extend a great big warm welcome to you. This is episode 17, season 2 of the Ask Zofie podcast. For some reason, I don't know if I'm sat like closer to the screen today, but my head looks like particularly large for those of you viewing me in YouTube. So maybe I'm going to say apologies for that. But if you're just listening, you don't even know. So it's all cool. I just sat to get prepped to do this recording, and it feels like so long since I did the last one. I think it must only be, it's only 2 weeks, but I don't know why it feels like an age. Maybe there's a little bit of a lag from when I had my Christmas break, so I still feel like I'm getting back into the swing of things. Okay, before I get into it, I'm just going to share, this is my behind the scenes for today, that you will probably know if you've listened to the most recent podcast, or you follow me on Instagram, or you're in my membership or on my email list, that I've been working like a crazy lady behind the scenes on the course I'm going to release soon. Actually, I'm going to do the pre-release. It's going to be the 31st of January until Friday, which I think is the 3rd of February. That'll be the pre-release. I don't know when I'm going to release it, but the pre-release, you're going to have an opportunity to buy it at a cheaper than it will ever be again price, have access to the first 5 modules, and when the rest of them roll out, you'll have access to all of them. And you'll also get access to the live masterclass. So naturally, if you want in and you're going to purchase it now, if you can, is the best time, because it's cheapest and you get access to the masterclass live. You'll have access to it as a replay, but not live if you join Reframe later on. Anyway, I've just been working on this. It's always quite funny for me when I'm working on a project like that, because I write the content, I record it, I edit it. So there's a lot of time with me with my big old headphones on, and literally I'm on the loo and I'm listening, I'm doing the washing up, I'm cooking, I'm doing all sorts of things because I want to get these creative projects birthed. And this is definitely the case with Reframe. So as I've said before, if you want to be the first to know when it goes on pre-sale, when I do a pre-release, then drop me a DM on Instagram, WhatsApp me, email me, text me. Are there any other means? Facebook Messenger me, send me a a note in the post. But let me know, and you'll be the first to know, and you'll be able to get access from, like I say, the 31st of January. So that's been the main thing taking up my time. Now, and also before I get into today's content, I'm going to share a page from Love Notes, as I always do. Today I'm actually sharing, 2 pages that I picked out for myself last night. They are, as is invariably the case, they are pertinent to me right now, to my situation, which is part of what I'm going to talk about today. They're also therefore pertinent to this conversation. And so I wanted to share them, because if you're listening to this at a time when you really feel like you need this content, then these words are going to be beautifully soothing for you. Okay, so the first page I saw when I opened was, I am your home. Come home, come home, come home. And the second page, which is actually the preceding page, is, I am your home, the shelter you seek, the peace you yearn for. Come home, come home, come home. And of course, this is a nod to the fact that the divine, God, your higher self, your soul, whenever we feel lacking, whenever we feel sad, less than, and lonely, whatever it might be, this is what we're really sensing a sense of separation from. It isn't the person or the loss of the job or the money or whatever is your mind is focused on. It's actually the lack of alignment with the divine, with yourself. And this is a beautiful prayer from your divinity, to return home to it, and therefore feel that sense of being complete and enough, and so on. Okay, so I really hope that soothes, and particularly if you're someone for whom this content today is relevant right now, that lands, that hits the spot. It certainly did for me. Okay, so today I am talking about my advice, my thoughts on what to do when you're sad, when you're heartbroken, when you didn't get something that you wanted, particularly if you really thought you were going to get that thing, when things suck. I haven't done it yet, actually. I'm just finishing the 5th module for Reframe, but there will be a module in Reframe called, I think I've called it, I'm going to call it When Things Suck. So I will do a specific process for this, and I will speak more to this in Reframe. But I wanted to speak on this topic because, of course, it's so potentially so helpful. What was I going to say? No, it's gone, but it will come back. The other thing I wanted to say is that very often when someone shares on like a podcast or social media, whatever it might be, about their transformation, like maybe it's to do with their health, maybe it's to do with their mental well-being, whatever it might be, most of the time they're speaking after the fact. So they're speaking with hindsight, they've come through it, and now they're sharing. It's not very common for someone who's in the midst of something to share their insights, their kind of a little bit like behind the scenes, how they're dealing with it. And I think there can be real value in this. And so the reason I'm sharing on this topic today is because as I do so, there are actually a bunch of things that are on the physical up in the air. Like I shared last week or the week before, I can't remember now, that I had Susie put to sleep. And yet I'm not like sitting around wailing about this because she's a cat and not a human, although not diminishing anyone that feels that real depth of sadness. But when a pet does die, because I know that is understandable, but at the same time, for me, I put it into perspective. But still, she was with me a long time, and that was a sad thing, a sad moment. I am moving soon, all being well, or all being well, all's going to be well either way. But anyway, I'm just saying that saying. And also pivoting things in terms of my work. So there's, and some other stuff. And there's these things going on. And also, this is me putting on my big girl pants because there's something that is weighing heavy on my heart. I can't go into the details because it impacts other people. But suffice to say, there's a hurt in my heart that I'm contending with. And, you know, I've been around the block. And so it's not the first time I've experienced heartache, heartbreak, upset, any of these things. And I've certainly had probably more than my fair share, and definitely of that deep despair and agony, been through stuff that's above and beyond the norm. So I wanted to speak to this while I was in this discomfort, this sadness. Now, the first thing that I want to say before I go any further, because, you know, those who follow me, who are in my membership and so on, are always really sweet. And whenever I share something like about Susie, or I'm sad about something, people are like, oh, are you okay? And reach out to me, which is lovely. And the thing I want to say is, one, anytime I do that is not a pity party. That's not my vibe. It's not about me. And two, oh God, it's gone out of my head now. What was the second part? It's going to be, I should call this episode the episode with all the brain farts. It's such a funny term, isn't it? But yeah, it's gone. What was I going to say? It's not about me. And two, no, it's gone. But what I do want to say is that I want to be here as that bridge, as that guide, to show you that you can go through these challenges and still show up with grace. I know what I was going to say. Yeah, a few it's come back to me. So whenever I go through any challenge in life, the thing that is really not easy for me to get across to someone who doesn't have the faith that I have is that invariably I'm going through the pain or the challenge or whatever, but I feel held in God's love, in God's grace, like I'm resting in his palms. So it's sucky, but there's this foundation, there's this depth, there's this love that I feel powerfully is omnipresent, that really more than it takes the edge off. So please know this. It's like, if you're looking at me and thinking, oh my God, and kind of like putting yourself in my shoes, please remember that helps me enormously to kind of get through stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, this is me definitely with my big girl pants on, showing up to show you that you can go through stuff, and it's okay to break down. It's okay to have moments. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel anything, feel all the feels, but you don't need to let it totally engulf you and rule you and start to become this globalized experience that are crappy things happening, and then you keep perpetuating it because of your focus on it. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so I'm sharing a bunch of things that I'm doing now to help me while I feel sad, and also that I did the time when I feel like is most relevant to share from recent years is when I separated from my ex-husband. So these are the things that I know will help you anytime when things suck. So the first is a question that I've spoken about quite a bit, and it's something that's on my mind at the moment, and it's so powerful in terms of helping you to flip the script, to reframe things. You know, I've talked about this, I talk about it all the time when I'm recording the reframe modules. The reason I called it reframe is because of the power of reframing, of flipping the script, and this does that. So it's asking, who do I want to be in this situation? So that could be relative to anything. You know, you didn't get the job you really wanted, someone that you love died, you lost a load of money, you know, whatever it might be. The more you're focusing on this thing's happened to me, you feel disempowered, you feel vulnerable, you start to head into victim mode, super unhelpful and sucky. But as soon as you put the onus back on you, okay, this has happened, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? And then you empower yourself. Is such a powerful shift. Okay. The second thing I want to say, and this particularly happened when I was getting split up from my ex-husband. Now, I am still, to some degree, way better than it used to be, but I still have a challenge doing my thing where I check that I'm recording. Even though I set to record automatically, so that's me being silly. But anyway, I used to have a massive guilt complex. Like, I'm definitely one of those people, you know, when you go through the airport and they say, if we find drugs on you, you're going to be like sentenced to death. And I'm like, I know I haven't got any drugs, but have I? Did I just look guilty? And that's kind of silly, but it does play out in much more substantial and challenging ways. But like I say, I'm much better now because I keep working on it, and I will continue to do so. However, I still have some of this going on, and I had more of it when I was separating from my ex-husband. And while there was no logical reason for me to feel guilty, like far from it, I did. And I remember it would be typically on a Sunday night when I'd finished my relaxation sessions and I was in a particular vibe, and I'd have to go back into the house and I'd feel this wave of grief, guilt, sadness, emotion, and it felt like it was going to entirely engulf and drown me and take me over. And probably the only thing that stopped me from giving in and going into the house and saying, okay, let's just make up, was that I knew unequivocally I had to get out of that marriage. Like, it was so damaging for my spirit. So I knew no matter how challenging this is, I've got to get through it. So that enabled me to ride through it and to allow the emotion to come to me, through me, over me, and then pass through me. And so I want to say this to you, in those moments, in any time when you feel like, and I've definitely had it loads with panic over the years, like the panic is going to, like, I don't know, cause you to implode, or it be the end of you, or the sadness is too much for you to bear. It isn't. If you can know this and let it come over you, let it pass through you. I'm just remembering, actually, I wasn't going to say this, but Jill Bolte Taylor, a woman who wrote a book called My Stroke of Insight, who was a neuroscientist who had a stroke, we won't get into the details, but she talked about, I think it's I'm not actually sure about this, but I'm going to say like 60 seconds. It's not long for an emotion that you don't get involved in to pass entirely through your system. So if you can let it be, please know, and I absolutely am an example of this, that if you let that emotion come and like have its way with you, it will pass, and in short order, and it will not end you. And when you're able to observe, like I've talked about previously, and again, I'll talk about this in Reframe in the mindfulness module, when you observe those, sometimes the emotion is too overwhelming, but if you're able in any way, shape or form to step into observer mode, it will again take the edge off it. So please know, it won't end you. And letting it be every time you do this will actually diminish the emotion. So the other thing that I'm doing at the moment in Reframe, there will be 2 modules that will help with this. The first one I've already done, it's the rewind module. And in the rewind module, what I do is I take you through a process that helps you to drain the emotion from anything traumatic that's happened to you. And I'm also going to do a module on belief shifting, which is doing the same, similar thing, but with thoughts, with mindset. And then there's also a reframe module, which I'll do after the rewind, which helps to create a new sense of how you want to feel about the thing that previously had triggered you or created any sort of trauma in you. So as I'm going through this experience, I'm aware of any time I'm particularly triggered by something, like something I realized, I've known this for a while, but yesterday or the day before, I forget, I was driving along and I saw this little kid running down a hill and then fall flat on his face, and I think hit his face, and it just triggered me, like seeing someone in pain, upset. It's just like, whoa. And I know part of that's natural, but I understand too that my sensitivity to it is above and beyond what would be the average person's. So I also know that this speaks to me. Seeing someone upset is a real challenge for me. And it's like, okay, this is something I can do the rewind technique on, and I can change my thinking around, and that's what I will do. And so Reframe will help you with this. But let me see if there's something I can give you right now that you can do without getting into Reframe. The first thing is to just become aware when something triggers you, when you feel tension on the back of something, know that this is something that you can do something about. And maybe I want to say that mindfulness is a good starting point here. Okay, hopefully that's helpful, but message me if you need any more on that. The other mantra, well, the mantra, I haven't shared any other mantras, but the mantra that I used heaps, you probably heard me talk about this before, when I was getting divorced, and it's really helpful any time when you don't know, like when I was getting divorced, I didn't know how much money would I have, where would I live, where would I work, all these different things. And again, this kind of sobers you up and centers you and grounds you, is I will make this work for me. So you didn't get the job, you got dumped, you, I don't know, like it could be me, I didn't get to move into the flat, whatever. I will make this work for me. And then again, you take the onus off, or the focus off what's happening, and instead you focus on who you're being, how you're showing up, and the fact that you are divinity in human form. You have the capacity and then some to make any situation work for you when you're in alignment, when you're empowered, and this helps to get you back in that space. The other thing that I've seen loads of, that I know from experience, from my training and from work, not to do, I've seen lots of people do this, is when something sucky happens, they stop doing the things they did before that brought them joy, that was like their medicine or whatever. So say, well, like for me, that would be exercise, meditating, ample sleep, time on my own, seeing my friends. I could think, right, I've got loads going on. And obviously to some degree, yeah, it's going to be more challenging to hang out with your friends when you're busy. But I'm talking about not quitting this altogether. So I could be like, yeah, I've got all this stuff going on. I'm going to burn the candle at both ends. I'm going to stop exercising. And what happens is, regardless of the situation that's happened, you now are creating life circumstances that aren't conducive to you thriving. So there was hardly any time when I was separating from Jimmy that I didn't do my usual stuff. There was the odd occasion where I was too sad to go and see my friend or whatever it might be. But pretty much across the board, I still went to the gym. I still saw my friends. I still worked, because I knew that these things create the foundation of me being in alignment, in a good space mentally. And this is just a grave mistake that people make all the time. And then they feel crappy and they think it's because of the thing. And there's some of that, but it's not really that. It's because they stopped doing the things that are part of them setting themselves up for success. Okay, so I talked about earlier how whenever I'm going through stuff, I'm going through it, but not in the way that you might imagine, because I am, what's the word, kind of like protected somewhat by my faith and my beliefs and so on. And what I'm going to say now is related to this. Like, I talk a lot about divine compost, okay, and how whenever you're going through an unwanted experience, the very polar opposite of that has already been created. So if you are feeling sad, there's happiness available to you. You can't tap into it right in the moment, but it's more available to you now than it was pre you being sad. Something I used to get people to do sometimes in one-to-one work was, if they're feeling crappy, like, write down all the unwanted feelings and so on. I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm skint, I feel unhealthy. On one side of a piece of paper, on the other side, you write the opposite: joyful, connected, healthy. And then you fold it in half, and you know that what you are experiencing is old news, and what's on the other side, that's what's now available to you. This is the really awesome thing about going through unwanted, is it creates the opposite of it. The only question is, when are you going to get your backside ready to allow it in? I heard a new statement recently, which is polarity creates clarity. And this also speaks to exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, so two more things I want to say. One is, again, to speak to faith, and how you don't need faith when everything's going great, when everything's hunky-dory. It's like you can't suss out a narcissist when everything's going their way. It's only when you tell them no that you start to see ultimately their true colors, not at the depth of their soul, but on a human level, their true colors. And so faith helps enormously. I've touched upon this a couple of times already. And this is massive. It's doing whatever you can to lean yourself into this knowing that, if not this, something better, that things are being worked out for you, no matter how it seems in the moment. It will all make sense. Why don't you just allow yourself to believe that before you can actually see it, so that you start to permit it in more rapidly, in a more short order. This is really, really key and really helpful here. And then another mantra that I used loads when I was going through my separation with Jimmy, separation, whatever you say, it sounds weird, was, I will let this break me open. So actually, I can't see this on my notes, but I did want to say it, and it's related. The thing that I want to speak to here is that it's twofold, is not letting yourself fall into victim mode. When I was going through that separation with Jimmy, I remember I still worked, and I was really authentic about, look, I'm going through this thing, but I'm not going to let this rule me. And I did a workshop, and I was a bit mindful of, my gosh, I'm going to do this big workshop at a festival, and am I going to be okay to do it? And then I suddenly was like, hang on, it's not about you, Zofie. It's about maybe that one person in the audience that you might say that one thing to that really helps someone. As soon as, again, I flipped it, and it's like, it's not about me, everything shifted. Again, this is why I called reframe, because it is about flipping the script on your life. Such a powerful, beautiful, aligning thing to do. So it's finding purpose in the pain. It's making it about something more than you. In some ways, I'm helped by this because of my work, because it's like, I can't really just sit around and wallow, because there are people to whom I feel not a sense of responsibility necessarily, but I want to show up for. I want to guide and support. And also, my children in my personal life. So as soon as, again, you go, I will let this break me open. I will find purpose in this. I will let this call me into more love, into more grace, into more kindness. That's something I do all the time relative to the sucky things that happen to me. It's like, I'm going to allow this to make me a softer, more compassionate, kinder person. something I do, in fact, I haven't done it for a while, is when someone is like, and this happened to me the other day, I didn't really cut this woman up, but I think she thought I cut her up. Anyway, we'll agree to disagree on that probably. And she had to get in the right hand lane out of my way anyway, but she was obviously so not happy, and she beeped, and then she stuck her middle finger up at me. And I was like, wow, like, how can you be that mad that someone you imagine cuts you up, causes you to get into that kind of rage? But something I used to do, and I'm going to start doing it again because I've reminded myself, is when something like that happens, is I will then pay it forward. I think, that lady was unkind to me. I'm going to be extra kind to 10 people. I'm going to let 10 people more out than I would have let out before, so that I'm turning that unwanted experience into something positive. And that's so aligning with the divine that it feels, to me, it takes me out of that, oh, that was horrible, to I'm going to make something positive out of this, which speaks to what I'm sharing here, really. Okay, so I will let this break me open. I will find the purpose in my pain, make it about something bigger, something else, somebody else. And you will benefit from this because you will lift yourself out of victim mode. And it's whenever you're in there, you can't be helped by no one or nothing. But as soon as you lift yourself out, you are helping others, and then you will be helped. This is one of the paradoxes, and there are so many of them, of life. As soon as you make it not about you, it becomes about you. As soon as you give, you are given to. So powerful. Okay. I really hope from the bottom of my heart to yours that this helps, and maybe save this, bookmark it, whatever. Remember, it's here for any time in life when your heart is hurting, when you are sad. I'm feeling like, because I managed to introduce it without going into the ugly cry. And I'm thanking God for makeup, because I had the puffiest eyes this morning. It was not a vibe. It was not a look. It would have been fine if I was still in the cupboard, but obviously I'm on YouTube now, so I don't want to be showing that face. I'll share what's in here, but not necessarily this. I'm just pointing to my face if you're just listening and not watching. But I'm feeling really thankful for that. Yes, message me if you want in on Reframe. The other thing is, if you buy it and you love it, and you're gonna love it, you will be able to be an affiliate, or apply to be an affiliate, and then you will get a really decent chunk of the proceeds for anyone you recommend it to, because I am so passionate about the power and the beauty of this content. I want to share it as much as I can, and obviously have you benefit from doing that too. So that's another cool thing about getting in early when I do the pre-sale. Yeah, any messages, any questions rather on that, let me know. Otherwise, have a beautiful rest of your day. I will be back next week, and thank you so much for listening or watching. As ever, did I say that a minute ago? If I did, yeah, just ignore that. But if you've enjoyed this, if there's been like a nugget in here that's helped you, if it has soothed you, uplifted you in any way, shape or form, please would you share it on your social media for me and tag me, otherwise I can't see. It means so much, and it's really, really helpful, and your support is like gratefully received by me. All right, that's it. Thank you so much. I'll be back next week. In the meantime, sending you heaps of love.